If anyone would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Silverton Board of Trustees. It's August 23rd, 2021, and the time is 7:03 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barella. Here. Trustee Harper.
Here.
Trustee Reger.
Here.
Trustee Bierma.
Here.
Trustee George.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman.
Here. All right. Do we have any for board revisions to this agenda?
I do have one, well, I have two kind of revisions. There was a memo missing from the original agenda packet that explains the update on CDEP Blair Street revitalization. This memo should be with item 9B and has been emailed out to the trustees, as well as there's a printed copy here for anyone who'd like to see it. I would also like to pull the communications RFP from the agenda, and this was agenda item 4A, as we need more time to evaluate the proposals and how they relate to the current communications and events position. So I just kind of want a little bit more time to evaluate them and see how they fit in.
Any objections? Any other trustee revisions to the agenda tonight?
Nope, that's it.
All right, we will now open up the meeting to public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. We'll keep time here. We'll start with in-person comments for those that are attending in person, and then we'll move to our Zoom attendees. Would anyone in the audience this evening like to comment? All right, to our Zoom attendees.
Albert. Albert,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Albert Hyrick. I have been researching the initial Selwyn Silverton prospectus authored by our mayor, which was given to me by Jordan Bierma a few days after the election. The documents were so shocking that I first believed Jordan was looking to damage the mayor. When he wasn't held accountable by the board for apparently violating executive session, and after witnessing his close relationship with the mayor, I came to the realization that he may not have been trying to hurt Shane, but was hoping that the recent election of the mayor might pique my interest in investing with Selwyn. I apologize, Jordan. I accused you of trying to hurt the mayor, but it seems you were actually just trying to seek investments for him. Anyway, the Selwyn plan is at the center of why I'm in favor of a recall. It is not necessarily the plan's content. It is how it is being implemented. I'm voting for a Shane recall because I believe he is dishonest. So much so, we are fact-checking nearly every statement he makes in his official capacity. Not being able to verify something does not necessarily make it a lie. For example, we have been unable to verify the mayor's claim he was more than just a transient in Telluride or Evergreen, or that he is a Colorado native by even the loosest terms. We are unable to verify that his father was a veteran, as he stated during the pledge debacle. Are these lies? Of course not. They are just currently unverified. What I am presenting tonight has been verified. We know Shane authored the Selwyn plan. His name is on it and his lawyer has threatened lawsuits over it. In it, he lists his 6 advisors. Advisors advise in their area of expertise. One of the 6 is Anthony Edwards, our esteemed local judge. Since it is unlawful for a sitting judge to practice law, what other area of expertise was Anthony offering? Anthony then took the town admin position and was instrumental in the search for both a new town admin and, despite his denial, a town attorney. We know he was involved because he apologized to the board for sending out an unapproved RFP to hand-chosen recipients without board approval. That's pretty involved. Was Marty, Shane's personal friend, one of the recipients? So the mayor, either past or present business advisor, offered official input at the very least in the hiring of Gloria and Marty. Shane has said, and Gloria backed this up in a recent email to me, that the town attorney, a friend of Shane's chosen after input from his business advisor, and the municipal league are the sources they use to determine if something is ethical. And the hiring of Edwards was all cool, according to them. I don't believe you, Mayor, and this is where honesty becomes paramount. Thankfully, correspondence to and advice from the municipal league is not covered by attorney-client privilege and is open to Cora requests. If you contacted them, we will verify it. I will continue this later and
Thank you,
focus
Albert.
on why
Your
no one
time
needs
is
to
up.
fear a lawsuit by Shane.
Thank you, Albert. Your time is up. It looks like that's all we have for our opening public comment. At this time, we'll close public comment and move on to our first order of business. 3A, proclamation recognizing Kimmett Holland for his years of service with the Silverton ambulance. And Kimmett is here with us tonight, and I'd like to read the proclamation in his honor. So whereas emergency medical services personnel have increasingly become the frontline public servants providing emergent and primary care, and whereas in recognition of Kimmett Holland and his dedication and commitment to serving the citizens and visitors of Colorado to provide life-saving care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that directly benefits the citizens of the town of Silverton. And whereas access to quality emergency care has dramatically improved the survival, quality of life, and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury related to traumatic injury, respiratory and cardiac arrest, and many other medical emergencies throughout the tenure of Kimmett Holland. And whereas emergency medical service providers have traditionally served as a safety net of America's healthcare system, and whereas emergency service and search and rescue services directed by Kimmett Holland have required a tremendous amount of time and effort in upgrading their training and education to provide and improve emergency medical services to our citizens. And whereas the town of Silverton would like to recognize the accomplishments of Kimmett Holland on behalf of the emergency medical care team, including paramedics, emergency medical technicians, emergency medical dispatchers, first responders, firefighters, search and rescue members, ski patrollers, law enforcement officers, flight nurses, flight paramedics, and pilots. The town of Silverton recognizes the selfless service of Kimmett Holland and the community benefit realized throughout his service since 2013 to the state of Colorado and town of Silverton. Now, therefore, we, the board of the town of Silverton, hereby proclaims a proclamation of the service of Kimmett Holland. Kimmett, thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
I know you guys got a busy agenda, so I won't be long, but I just first want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule and your agenda to make this like property. I want to thank Todd. He's the one who told me that you guys were working on this, and it's greatly appreciated. But I also want to recognize our members over the years, our employees. It's been a building block, 8.5 years of, building something up to where we are today. Our board of directors, primarily the core group, which has been Chris Cookie, Scott Fetzenheimer, Jim Donovan, and Becky Joyce, have been very, very supportive. And of course, our paid staff over the last couple of years has just done a tremendous job. But I especially want to thank all the members of the community that supported us when we were at a turning point to either, help this EMS service, and not just EMS, but fire, mountain rescue, public health, emergency management, to support all of us. And I think, and I know in my last 8 years, 8.5 years here, that there's been great improvement with all these agencies. So I'd like to thank all the community for supporting and helping us get to where we are. And thank you guys again for taking time. would be this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we move on to item 3B, Independent Redistricting Commission presentation on preliminary map.
Kelly, would you mind permitting Jessica Shipley to the panelist?
Before we get too far along here, I'm having a technical difficulty of accessing our packet. It's just like not connected. It says I'm connected to the internet, but then I can't actually get the link to the materials. I had it uploaded and then now it's gone.
I'll go grab you a cup.
Oh, thank you. That would be great.
I'll do it.
Well, here, you get the presentation ready and I'll go grab it.
Can you hear us, Jessica?
I can, yes.
Anything to this, or should we just leave it alone? Everything is.
Sorry. Thanks for holding. Awesome. Thanks, Gloria.
Jessica on? All right, wonderful. So we have Jessica Shipley here from the Colorado Independent Redistricting Commission to give a presentation on the redistricting process as requested by our last meeting. Jessica, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful.
Kelly, would it be possible to like split the screen so we can see Jessica as well?
We have your presentation pulled up.
Okay.
I don't know.
If you want to just minimize the participants.
Yeah.
There it is.
I sent you the PDF, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. I had a catastrophic failure with the PowerPoint. I'm glad I made a PDF of it first. Hi, I'm Jessica Shipley. I am the staff director for the Colorado Independent Redistricting Commissions. We are a new group that was created as a result of amendments Y and Z, which were passed in 2018. And the purpose of the two commissions that were created was to try to take some of the partisanship out of the redistricting process that happens every 10 years. Still to be seen whether that worked or not, but so just a quick refresher for those who don't know, every 10 years, the US Census does a count of all the people in the United States. Congress uses that data to reapportion congressional districts based on those population numbers, and apportions the 435 members of Congress to the states as needed by I can share my screen if that's easier.
That might be easier. Let's see if Kelly, which one's easier? She just shares her screen?
That's fine.
Yeah, she's on it.
Okay,
Does that work?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, Congress uses the population number to apportion the 435 seats in Congress among the 50 states. And this year in 2020, well, in 2021, Colorado picked up a seat and some other states lost seats, but still we stick with that 435 number in Congress. Redistricting is the process where we take those numbers and the number of congressional districts and the number of state legislative districts and redraw the boundaries so each one of them has equal population within them. As I said, there's 435 seats in Congress, and Colorado has 35 state Senate seats and 65 in the House. And that doesn't change based on population numbers, stays the same, because it's in our Constitution. So the way we used to do redistricting in Colorado kind of was a two-step process. We had congressional redistricting done by a committee of the legislature, and they often had a tough time with that. And in 3 of the last 4 times that congressional redistricting was done, the courts ended up drawing the maps rather than the legislature. Which I think was the big impetus for offering amendments Y and Z to try to take it out of the hands of the legislature and put it in the hands of an independent commission. State legislative redistricting beginning in 1974 was done by what was called the Colorado Reapportionment Commission. And that was 11 members that were politically appointed by the governor, the legislative leadership, and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So the amendments created 2 new independent commissions with a very complicated and convoluted selection process that involved an application process, a set of retired Court of Appeals justices looking through those applications, choosing the ones that best fit the qualifications needed for this position. And there was a stage of just drawing names out of a hat, essentially, for half of each commission, and the other half was were selected by the judges themselves. And we are one of a handful of states right now that has an independent redistricting commission. We are one of 2 that is doing it for the first time this year. And California has a similar process, and they used it in 2010. So they're the only ones with any experience with a truly independent redistricting commission. Each commission has 12 members, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 4 unaffiliated voters. And I'm part of the nonpartisan legislative staff. I generally work for the Colorado General Assembly. I am research and committee staff. So I manage a group of people who staff standing committees of the legislature. We write the Blue Book. We do all kinds of policy research. Our office also does economic forecasting and fiscal impact statements. So we do a lot of things like that. And then the other half of the commission staff are attorneys from our Office of Legislative Legal Services, which drafts bills. So these are the 12 people that have been chosen for each of the commissions. They're people from all over the state. They represent, we have no more than 2 people representing each of the current 7 congressional districts in Colorado. We've got people from, Durango, Steamboat Springs, along the Front Range, Southern Colorado. We've got somebody from Trinidad and somebody from Alamosa. So kind of cover most of the state. So the criteria that we're required to use for drawing districts is in the Constitution, and it's there's a bit of a hierarchy. To begin with, we have to have equal population. For state legislative redistricting, there can be some deviation, plus or minus 5% between the smallest and largest district. For congressional redistricting, we have to have it down to 1%. That's the only deviation that we're allowed. We need to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. The districts themselves need to be contiguous, which means you need to be able to get from one end to the other without having to cross through another district. And here's where it gets a little bit squishy. We're required to preserve communities of interest and political subdivisions where possible. So communities of interest are defined in the Constitution, but it's a very, like I said, kind of squishy notion that could mean a lot of different things. Districts have to be compact, and at the very last thing that we're allowed to consider is maximizing the number of politically competitive districts. We absolutely 100% cannot protect incumbents, declare candidates, or any political party when we're drawing maps. And this last part is kind of a restatement of the Voting Rights Act. Basically, we can't deny or abridge the right of any citizen to vote on account of a person's race or membership in a language minority group. So as I said, there's some sort of hierarchy of the criteria. There's different levels. So in the first tier is the equal population, the VRA, and the contiguity. The second tier is the compactness, the communities of interest in preserving political subdivisions. And then, like I said, the very last thing we can do is maintain those competitive districts to the extent possible. So as I said, there's a definition in the Constitution of what communities of interest are, and essentially they're shared public policy concerns that can include any of these sorts of things that are on this slide here. And again, it does not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So I'm not going to go through. I think as a board of trustees, you probably know what the difference between congressional and legislative is. So where we are in the process right now, the preliminary maps that we drew using a preliminary data set that we created because census data was not available to us at the time that we needed it. So we created a data set using data that was estimates made by our state demographer. We also used data from the Census Bureau in the American Community Survey that was the last iteration was done between 2015 and 2019. And we use the census's map address file to geocode where people live. So we created this preliminary data set and created maps for that, or using that data, and took those out on the road. So we are currently in the process of holding joint public hearings between both the Congressional Commission and the Legislative Commission. And we have done 33 meetings so far. We're holding our last 3 meetings this week in Commerce City, Brighton, and Colorado Springs. And not last Thursday, on the 12th of August, we received the 2020 census data, and we are now formatting the data and getting it loaded into our software solution. Once we do that, we will be creating what are called staff maps, and we're required to create at least 3 staff maps. If the commissions decide to adopt one of the staff maps before we move on to a second iteration of the staff maps, then we would only need to create the one. And what the staff maps will show is what they'll use is the data that we got from the census, any information that we have heard from the public, either in writing or in person during this 36 city roadshow that we've done, and those constitutional criteria. So we'll use all of that as a group, as the staff, to create a congressional map, a state house map, and a state senate map. We'll present those to the commissions in early to mid-September. There will be a second round of purely virtual hearings where people will be allowed to testify about those new maps over Zoom. And then the commissioners will debate and amend and do whatever they feel they need to do, and send an approved map to the Colorado Supreme Court for them to approve. The deadline for the Congressional Commission to do that is October 1st, and for the Legislative Commission, it is October 15th. So this is what our preliminary map looks like right now. And as I said, we have gained an 8th congressional seat. And you can see on the right, that purple district up there near the top is where we have proposed to put that 8th congressional district. The maps look different. Obviously, there's more population now. And we heard some things about how people wanted to keep the San Luis Valley whole and do some other things. And so that's was our first stab using our preliminary data set. The House and Senate maps also have changed. I don't think quite as substantially as the congressional maps, but that's up into interpretation. And the big part about amendments Y and Z, I think, aside from taking some of the partisanship and political nature out of the process, was to put in a huge emphasis on political or public participation. And so the commissions have really stressed the idea of, we created a web form that people could submit comments. We have an email address that we take comments. We take public comment at our meetings regularly. We have these public hearings in different parts of the state and invite people to come and talk to us about their communities of interest. We also, using the software vendor that we contracted with, created a mapping portal where people can use that to draw their own maps and submit those. There are also a number of free programs that are out there. Dave's Redistricting and Districtor are the two that come up the most often. And to be able to use that web program that's free and submit those maps, and then we convert them into our software, and we're able to evaluate those as well. These are kind of some of the things we were asking people when they came to testify. We wanted them to think about these things before they came, so that we could learn actionable things about their communities that we did not know that could potentially affect the drawing of the maps. So that's kind of it for the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I will tell you that the Constitution prohibits us from, specifically talking about mapping outside of a public hearing with the, with the whole commission. So I can talk in general terms, but I can't talk about very specific parts of the maps and why we did what we did.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or clarifications?
Well, if they can't speak about it outside a public meeting, I'm not sure our questions would do any good.
I mean, you can ask me the question and I'll tell you whether I can answer it or not.
Okay, so I have a very direct one. We were moved out, if you look at House 2011 and then you look at 2021, we have less than 700 people, and I'm not sure how our impact would change that much. We were always in District 59. Now it says we're 53, but we should be, in my opinion, aligned with 52. We have water rights in common with them. They're the ones who can actually call on our water, Durango South from Mullis Lake. And we also have so much that we partner with that going south. We really don't have anything going north. So what was the reasoning for moving us from our partners to the south to partners to the north?
I can tell you that most of the movement that happened in the House districts happened because of population centers and where the population is centered in Colorado. I will tell you that we've heard a lot of feedback that mirrors what you're saying here. And I would expect the first staff map to look different because of it.
Thank you.
Well, Jessica, thank you very much. If we don't have any other questions, I won't eat up any more of your evening, but we really appreciate you coming and presenting to us and clarifying a bunch of things for us.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Kelly, is that chat in the Zoom anything relevant? So in the next item, we have updates from San Juan Basin Public Health on mask mandate in San Juan County.
I'm sorry, it's actually San Juan County Health Department. I
Okay.
am so used to doing San Juan Basin Public Health from being downstream from here. So I apologize and say that we have San Juan Basin Public Health, or San Juan.
San Juan County.
San Juan County Health Department.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for inviting us, Jim Donovan, OEM, and DN PIO. We're just going to give you an update on where we are with the current outbreak. And just as protocol goes, since I am speaking, I'm going to go ahead and take off my mask, just so folks can hear online. And then Kelly, did you get a link to my presentation, or do you want me to share it?
I did not.
Is that what's in the chat?
Let's see, this, yeah, because the guest Wi-Fi is kind of unstable, so we'll just see how this
Yeah,
works.
noted.
Let's see. Did you get?
You should co-host availability, so you should be able to.
Here we go.
There you go.
Let's see if it actually.
I think this is what I was.
Says Jim Donovan has started.
Yeah, it's like unstable Wi-Fi, so here we go. Excellent, all right, so let's see if this works. There we go. All right, folks, so we're just gonna run through this real quick, and we are here just to answer questions and make sure that the public also has questions answered, so we can leave time for that. But I just wanted to give everybody a perspective on where we are, especially compared to last year. We have been going at this for 17 months now, which is pretty insane. But last year, if we were at this level, we would have been in full shutdown. So we really need to look at the progress that we've made. And that progress is completely due to a availability of the vaccine. So with that being said, since basically early August, we have had the highest number of COVID positive cases we've had compared to the entire pandemic. So that is why we really escalated our going back to basically our full emergency response. So with that classification, we'd be at level red or severe risk. And we're still in that within the state guidelines. And I just want to give everybody an idea that we're not doing this helter-skelter. We have a very, very designated plan with this. And this is often called the Swiss cheese model of safety. So basically you can think of each layer of Swiss cheese as a layer of defense. And this is used throughout any kind of area where you have to deal with safety. So even in traffic safety, similar. But we're talking about pandemic defense. So here are basically all of the different layers, and you can see not every layer is perfect. Every layer has There's always some type of error, some way that the virus can get in. But if you keep stacking these layers, you're just stacking more defense. So you can see last year we had basically that stay at home, and now we've got vaccines. So as we stack these layers, we have more defense. This is used throughout the world and is very effective. So now let's get into the stats. This is the most recent stats for us. This is compared to a per 100,000. So right now, San Juan County still is basically in the highest risk level in Colorado. And, you know, it's pretty stark. But when we presented to the county commissioners on August 11th and went into disaster declaration, we were at 2,000. So we've already cut that in half. So we've made already really good progress since then. I'll talk about some of the causes of how this outbreak has really, how the pandemic has kind of escalated recently. But just to give you an idea of where we have been at, in December of 20, this is the daily deaths in Colorado due to COVID. You can see now that we are much lower, but we also can compare what we do if we add masking or have no, basically no mitigation measures. So just by adding masking, that also reduces the chance of getting the virus by 30%. So it makes a big deal. A question that we've had is, well, how many people who are fully vaccinated, because you will hear about it, you hear about people who are fully vaccinated getting the virus. That can happen. The vaccines are not 100%. So this has happened, but it's very interesting to compare. This is the data for the state of Colorado. You can see that fully vaccinated, very low numbers. This is what you would expect. But unvaccinated people, it is a full-blown pandemic. It is basically uncontrolled, contagious virus. So it's really clear with this graph, full vaccination is your best defense. And we'll see, there we go. All right, still got it. Okay, so why did we get this surge in positives? We didn't have it the entire pandemic, and it's really due to the Delta variant. So as you have a bigger population of unvaccinated people, the virus mutates. And it's gone from, they use the alphabet, Greek alphabet, so it's gone from alpha, it's up to gamma, but the Delta variant is the most contagious out of the batch. Currently in the United States, the Delta variant is the most common. In Colorado, it's basically accounting for about 96% of the cases. Unvaccinated people are just they're at high risk. Visitors, we've had a lot of our visitors are coming from unvaccinated states. Locals who are not vaccinated. We have a very high vaccination rate for San Juan County, highest in the state. But with that, there are still people who are living here who may not have a address that is associated with Silverton. So we're not able to kind of record their information. So they are, you know, we're doing our best to get to those people who just may not follow normal communication channels. For example, seasonal workers. It may be hard for them to get some of the information. So they're just challenging to get a hold of. We've been doing the best we can with that. Anyone who is working basically in a building with a lot of people coming through and a lot of people who are unvaccinated carrying the virus, even if you're vaccinated, you're just getting kind of bathed in the virus, which is, you know, unfortunate. But those are the risks. And then we did have an event that was not planned to go indoor, but it did go indoor. And although it was not technically an outbreak classified by the state, we were able to identify a lot of people who basically got contagious at that event. So data monitoring, let's see. We have had hospitalizations. We have not had hospitalizations the entire pandemic, but in the past month, there have been 5 people who have been hospitalized, unvaccinated. Mercy Medical Center has been going between stopping non-emergent surgical procedures to make sure that they have beds for patients. So it is really important to understand that the whole system has been put at an escalated level. Also, with our EMS service, they have had to transport COVID-19 patients. That puts our EMS staff at high risk because it's just a prolonged exposure in a small space. Okay, so policy actions. So we did go to County Board of Health, and they double as the county commissioners. With our medical advisor, that's where we asked to have masks in an indoor spaces. That was also on recommendation because hospitalization for children has also increased. The virus has been pushed to younger levels. Children cannot get vaccinated. The vaccine is not approved for children yet. So on August 11th, we returned to a disaster declaration and declaration of pandemic. Like I said earlier, highest infection rate for the entire pandemic, and mask use is one of the tools that we can use. So part of the success that we have had this entire time, our commissioners have completely supported every decision that we've brought to them. Okay, so with that, the town of Silverton, we have really good experience with disasters since 2015 with the Gold King 416 fire. Every time the county has gone into disaster declaration, it's good for the town to follow suit. The big reason for that is what we call unity of effort. It's just showing leadership from the county and from the town is saying, hey, our system is stressed out. Let's make sure that we have all available resources ready to use if needed. They might not need to be, but it's good just to say, we're ready to deal with the problem at hand. This enables staff and resources to be used with minimal effort. It also basically designates for the jurisdiction that if you do need to spend resources or utilize resources, you can get that information or that stuff recovered. You can also go to Small Business Administration and they can open up small business loans, disaster loans. So those are some of the good reasons to follow suit when the county goes into disaster declaration. So I just want to emphasize that the vaccine is the best approach for us to get out of the pandemic. It's going to vary between the 3 main vaccines available, but basically it's around the 95% effectiveness. Interesting information though is that the Delta variant does knock down that effectiveness. That just shows how contagious the Delta variant is. The vaccine does decrease over time. This happens with all vaccines, and that's what we're seeing. So they have approved booster shots will come online September 20th for the general population. They've already approved the use of booster shots for immunocompromised individuals. Those are available now. The big thing that we get questions about is, well, what is the breakthrough rate for the vaccine? The breakthrough rate is more of a technical term, but what it really is getting at is the vaccines prevent severe illness and hospitalization, and they are still doing that. That's completely holding true. Like I said earlier, virus is now really starting to get into basically pediatrics, and we'll just see at what stage the vaccines will be made available for children, but that's just a much longer process. As of today, the FDA did do full approval of the Pfizer vaccine, so it was under emergency use authorization. Full approval means that it stands up to all of the other vaccines that we are familiar with on just on a regular year. And community effort. So, like I said, we've been at it for 17 months. Folks are definitely getting stressed out. We do want to emphasize we have a very small public health staff. It's really important to treat folks with respect. We are asking the community often to do things that are not the greatest, like wearing masks, social distancing. But it is just really important to always remember, it's like we're doing this out of what we want to do for the community and make sure that we can get through this. So we just ask people to show kindness towards each other. And then also self-responsibility. It's just taking care of yourself by wearing that mask, by being respectful. And if you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. Like there's not really any reason at this point unless you have a medical reason. That's a different question. If you are unvaccinated and do get the virus, you need to absolutely follow the quarantine and isolation guidelines that are provided to you. That is the way that we're going to keep this virus from getting worse. And let's see, I've got one more. Actually, we'll just, okay, yep, that's it. So now, Deanne, you want to toss in anything, especially like signage and our sign strategy?
So we have just gone with a communication strategy. Public health just wants to make it clear that the business owners are not the enforcement. That's not where enforcement happens, and it's not their job or responsibility really to be arguing or enforcing or saying it in their businesses, right? Because it's uncomfortable, it's political, it's either medical, and it's just not the place to put our work staff in that position. So we've really taken a very strong communication tactic. You cannot come into our community without, from any point of entry as of today, without seeing that or knowing that. So I worked with John Sites with Public Works, put up banners at each point of the OHV map, where the OHV maps are coming, the entry point, and then Sheriff and OEM ordered the CDOT sign, clear and direct communication. We've all been through this for 17 months. There's no sugarcoating. Indoor mask order in San Juan County. It's just that simple. But we are seeing folks out there without masks. And again, we are taking the stance of self-responsibility, right? And so where's a business owner responsible? For their staff, right? Wearing masks and complying, themselves, in providing a healthy, safe environment. It's not on our community to be out there and enforcing this. It is up to each, every one of us as adults and individuals, whether we're tourists, guests, locals, non-locals, seasonal residents, to make that decision for themselves. So again, we go back to the self-responsibility, which is you do what's best for you and your health. And if you can get the vaccine, you get the vaccine, you wear the mask as a business owner to protect your staff. So that's kind of where the responsibility lies on each other with so many guests coming in and out. So we just ask the public to be patient, conscious of our community and our, the visitor center. My number one rule with them is you don't argue, and it's not your job to argue all day. That makes their work life miserable. That makes interaction aggressive. I've witnessed it, I've been a part of it, and that's not the goal here. We're not everybody's manager, right? We're all adults, we've been through this pandemic, it's up to each person. So if we can do the best what we can for ourselves, then that is what public health is really taking the stance on and asking this community to do. But what we can do is communicate to a point where how can you not know? It's on every door front. It's, banners around town. It's on a lit up sign. We have signage we put out today on all the county properties that says, hey, you want a vaccine, you need a test, just call this number. And so vaccines, testing, that's all available 5 days a week. Asking each other to be conscious of what is best practices, how to protect yourself. It's really just not allowing this virus to spread amongst us and to continue to live within our community. So that's kind of the stance we've taken. That's the support we're giving to our business community. And we just ask the community to support this community and the business community and not necessarily take opportunities to tear each other down, throw each other under the bus, shop out of town. That kind of stuff is not really productive. And it doesn't make people, like Jim said, it doesn't feel respectful. So we know our business community is doing the best that they can and have the tools to be successful. And that is just really the main point that I'm trying to express this week to everyone.
Okay, we're here to answer any questions that you all have.
Sure. Thanks. This is a really good update, and I think it's really good for our community to hear what you guys are saying. And so my question, I have a couple logistical questions for you guys, just mainly as boosters become available, how do residents access them? Is that by appointment? And
it'll be the same drill. It'll be by appointment. If you have a booster, we have you in the system, so we'll be giving you a call.
okay, so public health will reach out to people who are already in the system when it's time for their boosters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that starts in September, I believe, right? End of September.
September 20th.
For the folks who started in December.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So it'll be 8 months from the last vaccination.
Okay. I totally hear what you're saying, that it's not businesses' jobs to be enforcement of this. And that's not what you sign up for when you own a business. I'm wondering, because I'm part of the school community, which is a huge unvaccinated population, and also really important to our community. I'm just wondering, it feels really vulnerable to be going back to school right now. And there are other people who aren't in businesses every day, but who are also around, parts of our visiting population that aren't vaccinated. And I am concerned that I want to know about the best way to enforce what we're trying to do to keep our population safe, because clearly San Juan County believes in vaccinations and we have this really high vaccination rate. And I think, our community values that level of defense. And I know that you're not here to ask us about, and I hesitate to even throw out this really politically charged word, but I'm going to. I know that I just want to bring up vaccination mandates, and I know that adds another layer of difficult enforcement, but as a position, and I'm sitting at this table in this position to advocate for the community, and I really feel like everything you just set up there points to the power of vaccinations and their effectiveness, and that we already have a really, a community that really values this. And so I just want to advocate for, I guess, getting as many people vaccinated as possible. And I would support, I would support a mandatory vaccination policy. And if that's something we can look into, I would support it. I think we just have a lot of population that's really vulnerable and depends on people participating in the whole system.
I had a question about the booster shots. I have a few friends that got and this might be a question for, I'm not sure if you can answer this or not, but we'll give it a shot. I had some friends that got the Johnson & Johnson shot because that's what was available at the time. They couldn't get anything else. Now, when it's coming to boosters, they're wondering if they should just start over and start with Moderna or Pfizer because Johnson & Johnson's efficacy wasn't as high as the other two. Do we have is there any word on whether or not we're going to be able to do that? Or if it's okay to get different jabs?
They have said that it's allowable to get different jabs, like even when you got your 2 courses of either the Pfizer or the Moderna. But I have not actually heard any definitive information yet. So with the boosters, there's going to be a lot of information available on that. I mean, ideally, you're always going to stay with the one that you went with, but
Sure.
they have also said that it's perfectly acceptable to, like, if you got Moderna 1, but then for whatever reason you needed to get Pfizer the second time.
Okay.
Johnson & Johnson had a different manufacturing process, and so that's where, I don't know.
I guess,
We'll have to find that out.
and one of the questions was it safe? Like, can they just, they said, well, can I just go say, I need a vaccine and I want Moderna? And 2, is it, I guess, legal for them to show up and be like, hey, I'm gonna get this vaccination. I don't want, because I'm not happy with the one I have. So,
That all with the boosters, there's going to be a lot of information that we'll get. We don't have that information yet.
thank you.
Technically haven't even been approved yet for general population.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
We held the unique title of being the most vaccinated county in the state of Colorado.
Yes.
Go us. Having more vaccinations been administered by our local health department, where do we rank now?
We are still at the top.
Okay, and what percentage is that? Do we have that figure?
6. I actually have done 5 interviews this week because
I know we were in the mid 80s, high 80s, and
So double vax, we're into the high 90s. I think as of today, it was like 94.
so we've done a very good job of
Absolutely.
doing it
So
ourselves.
you also have to take it in perspective, it's math, right? And so Colorado Demographics Office, obviously, there's not just 700 of us living here.
Mhm.
And so for my 5th interview today, the way I explain it is we are a very high alpine transient mountain town. And so we double in the summer, we gain a couple hundred in the winter, people are coming and going. We call them tourists, but there's actually people we all know who live here with us for 3 months, 6 months, who come and work with us. So to say today, this is how many we have is virtually impossible unless we went and did a head count. And so we have that base, we have that number, we won that award, right? But it's math and it's stats and it's fluid. So how do we say that? And then, the other thing is when we have, let's say 720 and we're only at the 93, a reporter pointed this out to me today. It's still 20, 30 pocket, right, of unvaccinated. Well, it's that pocket of full-time residents, vaccine hesitancy that we kind of saw start to spread and then go towards some of the vaccinated cases. So it's hard to say for Silverton because we're a high mountain alpine tourism town. We're not a rural community where it's 700 of us, we're only together, people aren't coming and going.
Mhm.
So it's hard to explain that math to the outside world because we're a fluid transient community. We all know how many people have moved here since the pandemic. Does Colorado Demographics Office know that? So when you look at our stats and our math, you really have to put it into this perspective is what month is it? Where are we at in tourism season? Where are we at in winter, summer? We're about to get a surge of winter folks that really necessarily didn't go through the pandemic with us before. So being that high alpine transient town, actually makes us a little more vulnerable as opposed to a rural plains stagnant population town. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But again, we are on the radar. Literally, we've done 5 interviews this week from Seattle to New York City to Denver to Kaiser Permanente. Like they look at us on a map on New York Times. They're like, what have you guys done? And I've learned to say, because it's true, community consciousness. The fact that we are so little for the good and the bad, and we're also intertwined together, that makes us strong, but it also makes us vulnerable because we're seeing each other every day. We're communicating, we're interacting. You don't do that in the burbs. You don't do that in the cul-de-sacs, right? And so we're more thoughtful of each other, especially when it comes to health, is what we've experienced through the pandemic. And so community consciousness is probably the best thing this community has going for us during a disaster. We've seen it in the Gold King, we've seen it in 416, we've seen it with the avalanche deaths. And so that is what makes San Juan County and Silverton powerful more than anything else.
So it is safe to say that we have been very health conscious in supporting one another and trying to pull together as a community to get
Absolutely.
vaccinations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's what I wanted.
Yep. And then
Thank
you also have to look through the forest, through the trees, right? Like Jim said, if this were a year ago, my God, the state would have shut us down. We'd have sent everyone home. We'd have battened down the hatches. This to me is actually, as bizarre as that is, being at 41 cases, we actually had, I think, 2 more today. Success, to be honest, in managing this pandemic. We're open. Our kids are going back to in-learning school. We're one of the only schools that always had live classroom, right? They did that through the pandemic. And so as vulnerable as we are, we really have been very successful managing and going through this pandemic. And it's unfortunate and it's difficult for us to know that some of our own are actually on respirators right now, that they're not spending the night in their homes tonight. They're actually in the hospital. But that being said, we're at full capacity. We're actually open. The biggest controversy right now is that we're asking you to wear a mask coming into our home. But how do you communicate that to a guest? That's difficult. But this is success of managing a pandemic. The fact that we had this massive outbreak and we're all here in a live meeting, we're not on Zoom, is actually success if you really look at from a year ago. Because we are going to have to learn as a society and a community to continue to live through this pandemic.
Thank you.
So this is actually in reference to what Tyler had said. I had already done some investigating personally into the booster shots in Johnson & Johnson. According to the CDC, plans to have one out within the next, not have one out, but have one coming out in the next week.
A booster for J&J people. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
that was already announced. That was 3 days ago from the CDC.
Any other questions? Do we need any questions from the audience? I guess.
So in the first phase of all of this, there were very clear financial incentives for declaring a disaster. All of our expenses were reimbursable. We qualified for different programs. Is that the case in this phase?
Yeah, it's that piece has gotten more complicated. I honestly don't have a good answer for you on that, but the way I see it is it's just better to have it in place. And then if there are extraordinary expenses that we have to start using, resources that we have to start using, then we have all of those mechanisms in place.
And how long does it take to declare a disaster in the event that we would need to?
Stroke of a pen.
It's actually, as far as the county goes, the executive director, Willie Tukey, he can do it for 7 days. So he can I can call him up and say, Willie, we're in a disaster. He's like, okay. And then he'll do it. What we did at the commissioners, they just were in agreement. Let's go ahead, make sure all the bases are covered and go into it.
Okay.
So
Because in the presentation, it seemed pretty clear that you were asking us to follow suit with the county, and I didn't want to ignore that ask.
That's my next
But-
question.
But in the first iteration, it was very clear, the primary reason that I think we declared the disaster was so that we could spend and be reimbursed and the town wasn't out of pocket, and we would have access to additional resources. And it seems less clear this time. And so I have some hesitation considering a disaster deck. Like, this is a much less extreme version, but it's like, we're not going to preemptively declare martial law if there were some other thing going on. I know this is different.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
It changes
it's,
the chain of command of things and.
It's not, yeah, I mean, it's not martial law. Just what it does is it just provides, it's just saying the jurisdiction is saying, it's like, okay, we're having a serious stress on our system. We want to make sure that we've got all the available resources to address the problem. And then if we need assistance from other jurisdictions, hey, we're in a disaster declaration. It makes it much easier for other jurisdictions to say, hey, we'll come and help you out.
So aside from that, what support does public health need from the town? Because I saw, you've said that the commissioners have been really supportive. Is there a way that we express support for public health, or how can we?
Yeah, I would say actually doing a disaster declaration would be a good call. It would show unity with the county, and it would just show unity with the public health order as well. We have seen in Colorado, there have been some jurisdictions who have fought about it, and I don't see any, I just see that as poor form, personally.
It could go either way. Like the town of Vail today created a mask order, but like Eagle County hasn't gone there. And it wasn't that they were arguing, town of Telluride is considering it without, so it's like either entity can do such an order, but like, as Jim said, I think it's really, the county's done it and the commissioners did it. The county is covered, but it's, the discussion that you guys have for the town of Silverton, especially as a government, if that makes sense.
Are you asking us to do that tonight, or what's the request?
Honestly, basically when we go into disaster, it's an assumed ask.
Okay.
So I would say if you guys, if there are questions about it, we can address those. But yeah, we would appreciate that. We would think that's showing good unity of effort.
So I think it's partially semantics and it's a lot of trust building. But I don't feel very comfortable following that request in this moment. We weren't included in the discussion leading up to this mask order. We weren't, to my knowledge, at the table discussing like what was going to be presented to the county when it was. And it seems like declaring that disaster declaration takes us even a step further from really needing to be included. We weren't included, to my knowledge, about the verbiage or the presence of the CDOT sign saying masks required indoors. Now, don't get me wrong, I support all the safety measures that we can take to protect this community, but that seems like something, whether or not that sign is just a hair over the county line or not, that this board should have at least been asked
But
to
this
consider.
isn't politics, it's public safety. So public health doesn't function under politics. In no offense, you guys are politicians. But
We're not.
when
We're
it's
volunteers in a small
public
community.
health, that's public safety. So when Becky went to her board of health and the commissioners, which is who she works for in Work County.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Automatic, yeah.
It is a
So
county
there wasn't-
entity.
Yeah, it wasn't really time to
Yeah.
politic.
Well,
And that OEM is also, both OEM and public health are county entities. So, yeah, we have done, we have always come to town board and given you guys updates. And
Right, but when was that county meeting?
that was August 11th.
Yeah, and today's
We
the
did have,
23rd.
there was a work session scheduled. We were ready to attend that to request a disaster declaration, whatever date that is after August 11th.
So I started by saying semantics and trust. This isn't necessarily substance, but it's like, I don't feel like we've been included in the process. And so now asking us to cede the official ability to be included in the process through a disaster declaration
just feels a little uncomfortable.
But that's
And it's not politics.
everybody else's opinion.
We've always run in tandem. It doesn't matter if we started first and the county starts at second. It's a way to show solidarity between since we're the only city in the county and 90%, 99% of the residents live within this region. I mean, we love Cascade, but they're pretty far removed. And it's just a simple stroke of a pen. Willie usually sends over the verbiage, then it goes to the administrator. The administrator would look at it and put it in our packet. And then they come and give a presentation and boom. I mean, that's the 416 was that way. Gold King was that way. Gold King was a disaster of its own. It morphed and learned. But it's not that there's not a seat at the table. It's more or less just being on the same page. And those discussions happen at the county. I got the notification of the meeting, but there was absolutely no way I could go. If I wanted to listen in, I could have. So, I mean, we have to take the responsibility as politicians ourselves, even though, I mean, we don't want to make this political. It is our duty, if we want to know what's going on in the county, to listen to a county meeting. I mean,
I actually didn't make the decision until that day.
That's why.
If she had known that decision that Monday, she would have, but she works for them, and that was their discussion as Board of Health for the county and what is best for these residents and citizens.
Yeah.
So it's the right thing to.
But the only reason I got it is because I'm on the chamber and you sent us out the whole entire thing that was in Willie's packet. So with the update. So that's why I knew. So, the constant contact that we've got through the town of Silverton is a good way, but that's not the county. The county is its own entity, but we're all the same. We're just, like you said, it's just about semantics. So I have no problem once we get the wording, if it's at the next meeting or if we need to do a special meeting. I mean, it takes 5 seconds in the stroke of a pen for all of us to declare it. So that way and it's mostly for reimbursement and just to make sure you guys are operating at this level again up here. And so the dollars that have to be spent go up. So it's just to make sure that you get the federal money that you need with the disaster declaration. So I'm not sure why. I mean, we've always done it. I mean, I'm not saying always is right, change is good, but yeah, I don't see an issue.
Yeah, and and again, it's county for the most part. You guys operate under the county. At the end of the day, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but public health can declare an emergency without the town having any say whatsoever.
Yes.
So I feel like this might be a case of bad timing because we were briefed on Monday, I think the Monday before that meeting, about the cases going up and how, a mask mandate might be a good idea. We didn't act on that mask mandate. Maybe we should have. And then the county board meeting was the following Wednesday. And they did declare it. And now obviously our meeting is several weeks later, but yeah, it seems like if declaring a state of emergency, or a disaster, which is what we could be in based on the red, and it makes it easier for reimbursements, I feel like it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest that I was opposed to a state of emergency or against any safety measures. So just to be clear, I just wanted to understand because the agenda just says update. So it wasn't my understanding that there was a request involved in this evening at all. I just wanted to understand that a little bit better. And
yeah,
I just wasn't ready for that request. It isn't to say that it's not a valid one or important, or that I don't feel supportive of public health in any way either.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just want to emphasize, like, the county, we have done, and we're full in it, but just as I think Trustee.
Just Molly is fine.
Molly is, it's just been good practice within our community that the town has followed suit. So I think this has been such a unique one because we have gone into disaster, gone out of disaster. We've had multiple disasters. So it's actually not that big of a deal to do that. So I understand with elected officials, it's like, oh, this sounds scary, but it's actually as easy to remove it as it is to
instate it.
instigate it.
And what you guys decide is, I mean, for you guys, it doesn't affect the county. It's just, we've always been a team for all these years, so we may have taken, assumption too with the team, but, it's your guys' decision. It's not really something that affects the county either way.
I mean, to use that analogy, I feel like we should be a team, but I feel like we're kind of like the bench players that just get told what to do at the end. And it'd be nice to be more included.
So Administrator Kosh, the superintendent of school, Administrator Tukey, the sheriff, that's kind of like the major with any disaster, because politicians come and go. And so we always have that core team that we've gone through this pandemic with. And then we've just been very lucky to have commissioners that, really it was the commissioners that pushed it that day, and that's their right. That's their space. They're the county commissioners. And so I think attending their meetings are also, it's a two-way street. So participating on their end just as much as you're wanting them to participate on this end.
Yeah, and another maybe kind of solution is, and this is how the county does it, is that the county administrator can call that set a disaster declaration. That way, there's time to get the commissioners together, so there isn't public meeting. But you basically have a 7-day grace period to make that happen. I don't actually know if the town has empowered the town administrator to do that. So that would be a recommendation we would make. That way, because I talked with Gloria the day we declared and said, hey, Gloria, here's a little backstory. We've got a little bit of experience with this, and just, ran her through the process of what the county does and how we have had the town participate. So that's what I would recommend that the town does, just to make sure that the administrator has is empowered to do that. So then she has time to go to the trustees and say, hey, this is what the county's done. They briefed me. I totally agree. Or maybe she doesn't agree. Then she doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, it just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, we've always just held a special meeting. Anytime this has happened, we get together, however it is, takes 10 minutes, notice the day before. It's written out, the language comes to us, it's cut and dry.
It seems really easy. I'm not in any way opposed here. I think we're caught in this moment where we're sort of reflecting on a process and living the process at the exact same moment and trying to learn from it. And I wonder if I did not feel prepared to make any sort of decision, just because even hearing you speak now, Jim, about, how Gloria becomes informed and how Gloria informs us. I just think that's a process that we're reflecting on that would help us make really good decisions. And then we can be prepared to be supportive and make really good decisions. But I think we're kind of caught right now. It's making this sound like a little bit of a bigger deal than it is. I understand it's simple. It's a stroke of a pen. I just think we got stuck a little bit in that weird space. So
We do have a emergency declaration that was drafted right after I spoke with Jim, so it is available if we wanted to move forward.
But because it wasn't included in this packet, it cannot be done at this time because it was not noticed and it was not included. So if we wanted to do this, we have to have a special meeting potentially around the 3rd or 4th or what, I don't remember those dates you threw out anyway. Or ballot, so it could all be done then at the exact same time, or it could be noticed and we could reconvene all on Zoom and takes 5 more minutes.
I will be asking for a special meeting on the 30th. For
30th.
Yeah.
I knew it was somewhere in there. I can't remember what you told me.
For the ballot language to be approved for the recall election.
And that's a week from now. How does that timing work? I mean, like, can you predict how many COVID cases we're going to get in the next week?
About 2 a day average.
Yeah, I mean, the trend has actually been decreasing, and fingers crossed, just we hope that that continues to decrease. But to be honest, this may also just be a good, treat it as a practice session. I mean, disaster declaration is extremely important, but a former FEMA director used to say, declare early, declare often, because it just basically makes sure that you are protected as a jurisdiction.
It's a good phrase.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Deanne.
That was some lightheartedness at the end. I'm going to remember that. Declare early, declare often. Okay.
You must have been from Chicago.
Well, maybe you guys can work with Gloria a little bit on just our process here, so we're included and prepared and ready to make an important decision that can support you guys.
Sounds good. Excellent. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly?
I'd like to add that we have actually ran out of masks here at Town Hall, but I was able to get another 10,000. They should be coming within the next few days. As soon as we get them, I'll have Gloria put it out on Facebook saying that we have more masks to give out to everybody for free.
Thank you, Kelly.
That's great.
All right. Anything else on that topic?
I think we beat that one pretty good.
Okay. All right, we move on to new business. We crossed out A, we're on to B, update on Rmp Land Lease with BLM.
During our boards and committees workshop, it was requested that staff provide an update on the Rmp Land Lease with BLM. And Todd Bove included a memo in the packet and is available here to go over that memo.
Good evening, everyone. Pretty straightforward. I'll kind of just reiterate what's in the memo. The AML program, Abandoned Mine Lands program, is completing remedial work up at the Mighty Monarch and the Lackawanna Mill tailings site. Following the completion of the work by the AML, BLM will complete an environmental site analysis, and NEPA. NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. I believe that's just what requires us to complete the environmental site analysis. And then following that ESA will be the actual conveyance. So unfortunately, we're still in a bit of a holding pattern. I think every year we think is going to be the year we'll complete this. And I think we genuinely still believe that this year will be our year. BLM has given us a time frame of fall, winter 2021. And I'd be happy to do my best to field any question. But I've kind of just recently resumed work on this project because it's been in a bit of a, our ducks are in a row. We've kind of just been waiting on BLM. So.
Okay, so I'd like to read everybody an email. I've already sent it to Gloria. This was last year. It was from Hello, Elijah. Long time no see. Molly here from Silverton. I have a question about the land attached to the Kendall Mountain conveyance, if it was ever finished or what is the status at the moment. And here was his response. This is August 28th of 2020. Good to hear from you. It will be nice when we will be able to visit in person again, obviously in the middle of COVID. We received and accepted the plan of development, or the POD, from the town this summer. The next steps is to complete the environmental assessment. It is a work plan completed by the end of the calendar year. I don't see any controversy, so that should be an easy meet. Next is the Notice of Realty Action, or NORA, which will be published in the Federal Register. My office has sent forward in January. However, those typically take several months or longer to get published due to the extensive review process in the Department of Interior. It is possible it could happen in 2021. The best thing to say, it is a routine action and it just takes a long time. So the only thing that could derail it was the application with the applicant withdrawing, which would be the town of Silverton. We just completed a very similar action in Lake City, so we're trying to move fast on this one as it's still fresh. So that was what my reference was to, was whether or not the notice of realty action has been published. Do we have any clue? Or the finished environmental assessment?
The environmental assessment has not yet begun, because that follows the AML is my understanding, or the work by the Abandoned Mine Lands program. So it's my understanding, based on emails with BLM from approximately 30 days ago, that the environmental site analysis will not begin until the AML work is completed.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. No, I was wondering if anybody else had any questions about what this is.
Thanks, Todd.
Yep.
Yeah, that's to the best of my understanding. The email I received, it was phased as you complete the AML, then you initiate the environmental analysis, which is required by NEPA, and then the actual conveyance will be complete. So not to my knowledge, we haven't started an ESA. And I believe, I'm not entirely sure about the requirements of the real estate notification, but I believe that's typically done no later than 60 days prior to closing. So I'm not entirely familiar with that process. I could do a little more research into it, but I believe that that step comes a little closer to the actual conveyance of the land. I imagine following the completion of both the AML program's work and the environmental site analysis. At that point, I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think at that point we would fulfill those real estate notification requirements.
So have you been in contact with Marty Medina?
One email about a month ago, I inquired as to a status update, and literally the text of the update that I've provided in your packet is the bullet point list she provided me in that update via email. And that was middle of July.
Thank you, Todd.
No problem.
Any other trustee questions?
Are there any more specific dates for when we'll get updates on hitting these benchmarks, or is the timeline any more specific, or is it just sort of a nebulous, you'll hear from us when we hear from us process?
I think it's the latter. We'll hear from them when we hear from them. I think it's certainly helpful for us to check in with some regularity and remain relevant in their discussions. As far as the process goes, the first time I heard we were going to be completing this process was when I was initially hired. I believe we were about 3 months out from finishing it. So that I'm not sure there's any single thing to blame. It's just kind of a slow process. I think we've been in this at least a decade. So it's kind of
18 years, I think, is the total. And I'm just at a certain point, like, can we ask them if this is going to happen, or if we have to wait another 2 decades? So, I don't know. Is it worth holding our breath for something like this, or is it just going to be a, pie in the sky idea that we're going to get this land, I guess?
I do have full confidence that it'll inevitably or eventually be completed. In the meantime, we do have a lease. The lease is good through, the most recent lease is good through 2025, and it gives us the ability in many ways to begin using that land as our own for the intended purposes, stated in the plan of development. There's nothing prohibiting us from initiating those plans of development. It's for all intents our land to use under the boundaries of the lease agreement.
Thanks.
Yeah, and that was the plan of development that I provided to Gloria today, that she provided to all of you. I wasn't sure if any of you have seen it.
I have reviewed that document. There's been quite a few amendments over the years. And I wanted to, it kind of came up in discussion today. I wanted to clarify with BLM what the most recent version of that document they've received and approved was. Because every time that document's amended, it needs to be submitted to BLM for approval. And I wasn't working on this project recently to know, or recently enough to know when our last plan of development was submitted to BLM.
That's the research. Yeah, you found the one from 14 I sent you to look for. So yeah, that's the research that's ongoing.
Yes.
We would just like to clarify if some of the amendments have actually been reflected on BLM's end, or if they were just internal drafts that never made it to BLM.
Awesome. Thank you. Anything else from the trustees, Jess?
Thank you,
Okay.
Tom, for your diligence and the update. Hopefully we can move forward with this. Yes.
It has been a month since I last checked in. I'd be happy to check in again this week and see if anything has shifted. We'd like to stay on top of it and stay relevant with BLM while also falling short of just kind of being annoying and checking in too frequently. So I'll come up with a strategy with Gloria, and we can maybe start providing regular updates once a month or once a quarter.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Moving on to the approval of consent agenda items. Any questions or comments related to consent agenda before we consider approval?
I really like the Wild New Way, whatever that is.
Excuse me.
It's on here, Wild New Way.
And so that is a staff training that I'm providing this Thursday.
Sounds great.
I have questions about the checks that were written again for Summer Sounds. There's additional checks in here. And so
I avoided the first checks that we signed for the last go round.
perfect.
They're put back in at half of the cost due to the
Cancellation, the abrupt cancellation. Right.
I had a couple kind of clarifications in the minutes. I actually can't provide the clarification because I'm not exactly sure, but on page 56 in item 4C, it said Mayor Furman asked for guidance if the recalled can't vote. And I'm not sure what that was intended to say. And then also a few more bullets down, it says Attorney Whitmore said the pulling of petitions the day after notification and after the governing body sets the election. So I wasn't totally sure about that either, what those sentences mean. But we have video, so
Yeah,
we
we
can
can
figure it
go
out.
back
if we need to.
and review the videos and update those minutes.
Cool.
I can make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the updated clarification on the points in the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barolo,
Oh, sorry.
Can we start the video again?
The brand new owl.
Thanks, Kelly.
Must be a setting for him to sleep.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Oh, it's a good call.
Yeah,
All
good.
The elevator music. Okay.
right. Thank you, Sally, for the motion and Tyler for the second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Barella?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Trustee Weigert?
Yes.
Trustee Birma?
Yeah.
Trustee George?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes. Great. All right, moving on to staff reports.
Okay, I have a couple of, so as far, I know that you all have requested, or at least Sally did, to be able to see the Zoom participants, and I'm still looking into this. The COG might have additional Zoom licenses that we might be able to get and facilitate that. The one thing that is holding me up on that is the chat function. So I'm still trying to navigate how to facilitate a chat function with being able to view both the participants and the trustees, and the other participants being able to see who's on. So that's where we're at with that.
Thank you.
And then per my contract, we would need to set a date to review my goals with the trustees. So I would request that that date be after September 9th, our retreat, so that my goals can align with the trustees' goals. And I'm looking at the week of the 20th, if, so that would be the September 20th, if there's available time during that week that we could do that workshop.
Let me see. Are we looking for daytime hours or an evening meeting for that?
Either one.
And how much time would you like for each meeting?
Oh, hopefully just an hour.
Okay.
Yes. Hopefully less than an hour.
So the 20th is our regular meeting date?
Correct. I was wondering if we could maybe do it right before the meeting.
An hour before, start a meeting with the work session at 6.
That's ideal.
Okay, great.
September 20th.
Yes.
The Monday prior for the meeting is, or the September 6th meeting is Labor Day. Does that mean we'd have the meeting on the 7th or skip that meeting?
We'll move it to the.
I have that we have the,
13th of the month.
yeah,
Oh, then we wouldn't have a
we
meeting.
wouldn't
on the
actually have a
20th.
meeting on the September 20th. We could do it 27th.
27th.
Oh, 27th.
Can you turn us back on?
I can't be, I'm gonna miss that meeting.
No, 27th, okay.
I could do the 13th.
Could we do the 13th? The short turnaround after our retreat?
Although we do have a joint town county finance meeting that day.
That's right.
That would also be good to do an hour before.
And that one is hopefully going to happen. I still have yet to hear back from Administrator Tukey on their availability right before that, so.
I could do that or the 20th.
I'm already gonna have a hard time. I'm trying to make it to that county, the joint finance meeting, because I have a training until 5. So if we could do it a different day or after that meeting.
We could move it into October and do it before an October meeting, if that would be.
We can
Well,
just do it the
for
20th and have 2 meetings in a row. Done it a number of times in the past.
Yeah, that's fine.
It says finance committee meeting.
Would the 20th be okay for everyone for,
That's why it was popped up as town board meeting, because I have it under the same thing. And so that's why it popped up.
Oh.
Yeah, because we planned our next financial
Finance.
committee meeting that day.
mhm.
So it doesn't distinguish when I type these in,
Okay,
different categories.
So the 20th at 6 or at 7? We don't have a regular meeting that day, so.
right. What, would 6 o'clock work for you all? Or would you go to 7?
Jess usually prefers later.
7 o'clock be better, Jess? Okay,
7 o'clock.
7 PM on the 20th. Thank you. And then, Community Builders is in town. They're a nonprofit that was recruited by the town and county to help facilitate a community-driven process. This will result in a vision for the future of the town of Silverton. They're asking people to participate in these small discussions at the Benson tomorrow, 8 to 9:15, and on Wednesday, 8:30 to 10 AM. And then they have other times in the afternoon as well. They're asking that you stop by and share your story. Clerk is going to be updating the board on the Compass project, which is the community builders project, on their progress after they meet with the master plan committee. So that will be on September 13th that we'll have Clerk present on the community builders. He also wanted to express that if anyone wanted to talk to him directly, you can get his contact through me and I can give it to you. So. Any questions on that one? Okay, and then the San Juan Development Coordinator, Beth Kramer, and I have, we just completed the Main Street Open for Business. I helped her complete the Main Street Open for Business grant. This is like just over $500,000, and the projects requested would positively affect 17 local businesses, 2 nonprofits, and 11 workforce housing apartments with facade upgrades as well as solar installations. So fingers crossed, it was a long weekend.
That's great work.
And it was a very quick turnaround grant within a month. So it was pretty intense, and the businesses that hopped on were very motivated. So that is what I have for my staff update. Oh, and I wanted to introduce our new deputy clerk over here. So this is Melina Marks.
Hello.
And we'll get her full-time here soon. We're sharing her with the pickle barrel right now, but we'll get her full-time soon.
As soon as they close for winter, I'll be done.
We are very excited to have her. And she's also fluent in Spanish, so.
Welcome on board.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it now this time.
All right. Any questions from the board on anything included in staff reports before we move on? Okay. Committee reports.
Over here. We had a finance committee meeting. We met, we figured out what our agendas will be and how to move forward and when our times will be, and we got a sales tax report. That was pretty much it.
Mhm.
Our next one will be in depth. Unless Tyler wants to add.
Yeah, we're formalizing the nonprofit ask procedure.
There we go. Good one. Thank you.
And yeah, and other than that, that's it. Molly nailed the rest of it.
It was a very positive meeting. I thought
We had
so.
a really wonderful meeting.
Today we had an ordinance personnel committee meeting. We talked about what we talked about at the last meeting about committees generally, of combining the Parks and Rec and Events Committee with the Building and Grounds Committee. We also talked about updating the ordinance and personnel committee wording to say that they will not generally have supervision over all buildings in town. We think that was probably a typo. We had a discussion about a full amend and restate of the personnel manual, looking at the Southwest Council of Governments model and possibly the Uray County model. We talked about conflicts that we have in our code that are created by updates in the Colorado Constitution that require updates in our code. Specifically, our code still says that tobacco sales are 18 and over, and the Colorado Constitution says 21 and over. And so we'll be seeing updates on all of those, I think for the most part, coming directly to the board rather than back to the committee and then to the board, since they're all fairly straightforward.
And a positive meeting. I just wanted to add that in there. It was good.
Any other committee meetings you're aware of? I think that was it. Okay.
Cool. We did have a planning commission meeting on Tuesday. However, I texted Lisa Dare, I had a prior engagement and I couldn't be there. But I believe trustee Jess Wiegert may have an update for us. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Trustee Wiegert may have an update for us. Sir.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I feel like I'm ready to go now. Again, we saw a pretty similar development in the ED to what we've been seeing over there. Not exactly a ADU, but kind of a mix with in between a townhouse and adjoined housing unit, I suppose. So that's something that we really need to look at as far as that the town is concerned, is whether or not we want to think about possibly rezoning that part of the ED into something that's more compatible with what's going on over there. It's a multifamily structure that's going up in that same part of town over by the campgrounds, the RV campgrounds. And so that's two, basically one right next to another, similar situation. And both of those have been put to the planning commission, and maybe the town board should think about revising the zoning over there. And the other agenda item was ongoing permit application that's down below Deer Park, below Deer Creek. Only access is by hike and trail or from the railroad. So that's still kind of hung up in the county. But that's what was going on at the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Jess. And I guess we should note that we had a committee meeting for committees where we went over all of our different committees, which is how we ended up having the updates for the ordinance personnel committee that we adopted. And we just clarified staffing and trustee membership in a few committees to make sure we're all organized and on the same page. And there's a spreadsheet in our packet for anyone who's really curious about who's on which committee. And that'll also be on the website.
The website has also been updated too.
Awesome.
That should-
Great. Nope. Moving on to trustee reports.
We had a library board meeting, since it's technically not really a committee. It's a subsidiary of that. We invited Gloria so she could learn about the library board, how things work over there, since we're getting ready to go into budget season, how the budget is presented, and the work that the library board does, and how amazing our library is. Unless you want to add to that.
No, I'm really impressed with the services we offer.
Yes. That's all I got.
Cool. All right. Moving on to continued business, affordable housing, CHAPA funding, and Anvil next steps memo.
Sure. Kelly, would you mind promoting Beth Kramer to panelist as well? Final question. So this is really exciting because this is a new funding opportunity from CHAPA, and this actually came out of our housing summit that Beth Kramer put on through the San Juan Development Association. So Beth and I met with Chris Lopez, who's our representative from CHAPA, on next steps in obtaining funding for building at Anvil. And as you can see in your memo, we would be able to obtain the funding for the technical assistance. And the cool thing about this is they already have consultants assigned, so ready to take on these projects. So it's not something we would have to go out for bid and find a consultant, like it's all in one package. So I would funnel any questions about that to Beth and myself.
Holly?
the first line under eligible products, 30 units or less. So we were only looking at potentially 2 parcels, correct? Over in Anvil that were still available. And so we'd be looking at 2 different fourplexes.
Well, and
8 units total.
And so that is another thing that we can kind of see the scope on. We would submit kind of both ends of that burrito at Anvil, the one side and the other side. So that would be, you could maybe fit 3 units on one side, maybe 4 on the other side. But we would also submit for the area that's right next to the current apartments. And see if that would be viable as well with all of this together. So hopefully making it more of, I don't know, Beth, what would you say kind of total units wise when we talked to them? It was 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, so it would be the 5 lots around the burrito and then the 1 multi-unit lot by the apartments. That's part of their technical assistance, is seeing how large of space we can place on these facilities, on these land parcels. So, but yeah, it would probably be a little bit more. And like Gloria said, we would submit for all of those lots that are available. And hopefully we can at least get design and architectural and technical assistance available for those lots. And use some of those to build for next summer.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, the cool thing about this is it's such a tight turnaround that we can put in deadlines and dates in there and say that we would like this to be completed by December or January so that we could move forward with our Department of Housing funding and then hopefully have this shovel ready by next year.
Beautiful.
So.
Oh, thanks, Beth.
All right, moving on to update on CDOT revitalization, Main Street grant and Blair Street revitalization with a memo that we've now received by email and is available in hard copy here.
And Director Bove wrote this memo and would probably want to take this one away. Okay, there he goes.
So I'll start with the unfortunate news. We were not awarded a grant in the initial round. It was very competitive. I don't have the exact numbers on me. I think it was somewhere around 60 to 70 applications for 16 awards totaling $22 million, if I'm not mistaken. We really felt really strong in the grant we submitted and would like to resubmit as it sounds like they'll be rolling this program over into a second round of funding. I do believe it still remains our best opportunity to fund this project in a single shot. And this project, at least in my department in Public Works, remains very near the top of the list. Huge community benefit. It is an expensive project and grant opportunities don't come around to with this kind of funding that frequently. So really, I wanted to kind of just announce the news we were not awarded the grant and try and get a consensus from the board that we would like to apply in round 2. I'm very eager to get a score sheet. We haven't been provided one yet. I think those will be coming out later this month or early in September when the next round of funding is released. And CDOT has given us the option to roll over our existing application into the second round, or we're welcome to make any modifications. I'd like the opportunity at least to view the score sheet before resubmitting, see if there's areas for improvement. But this is a great project. It did feel honestly like a bit of a gut punch, but I do understand that it was very competitive, and we look forward to, with the board's blessing, submitting another competitive application and see if we can actually pull this off for the community. I'd be happy to field any questions as well.
And thank you, Todd. Molly?
I just had one. So I've been on their website trying to see who all received the grants and for what reasons. Have you done the same thing to see what they were all about?
The last I checked was last Friday, and they hadn't put the pins on the map yet, as far as all the project awards. The only one I am aware of, Clerk Freeze passed me an article for Montrose. They were awarded one for, I believe, a bike path.
Yeah, Town of Fraser, Community Park, Newcastle, guardrail safety, Buena Vista, streetlight replacement projects. So is there something that we missed that we might need to add when we relook at this? I guess is what we need to look at. What was so vital about the other projects that we weren't in that same running, I guess. So, because you can always tell by who they gave it to on, how they're viewing these projects going forward.
I think one of the big things that stood out to me from the application process was having good user data. We don't have great traffic studies. We don't have good counts on how many people are utilizing Blair Street. I reached out to CDOT prior to our application, expressing that we really didn't have a good amount of the hard user data that they were requesting. And that was actually a pretty common trend amongst all applicants. They said they might even be scrapping that section moving forward because so few people actually have the data they were asking for. So I think in the meantime, something we could do is start trying to get numbers of how many people we think are actually riding their bikes, walking, driving down Blair Street, driving an OHV down Blair Street every day, because that data doesn't necessarily correspond perfectly with our application. When you say, by census, there's whatever the number is, 742 residents. I can't recall that number exactly. And you're trying to express in the grant that there's sometimes tens of thousands of people using these corridors and neglecting to use the sidewalks because they're non-existent in places. I do think we could try and beef up our data and show really how critical this corridor is to supporting our visitors and our residents, and just how high that those user groups are. When you say there's 600 people and they need a sidewalk, that's a very different tale than if you go down there 4th of July weekend and the train had just let off and we have all these various user groups in town. So for grants in general, starting to quantify the amount of people that are coming to this community and using our resources, I think would be really helpful. But I really don't feel like that dinged us based on my conversations with CDOT. They really said, do your best, take educated guesses. And that area wasn't going to be scored incredibly critically. But I do think it is difficult for us to try and get a grant for 600 to 1,000 people compared to a municipality that maybe has 20 or 30,000 people in it.
Well, one very good point of historical data of how many people let off every single day is the train numbers. That is something that I actually can text and get those numbers. We find out every day what the train numbers are, so that way we can staff appropriately based on that, or I can cut people based on that. So that is one way, just get in communication with the train, because that's hard data that comes in every single day.
The train is one of the areas we actually have really good data, and that dates back. I'm sure it's gone up a little bit, but that goes back really to the initial GoCo application for Columbine Park. We were provided that information, and it's quite impressive. But what they're really looking for is data throughout the year. So when you start breaking down the train numbers and then compensating for February, what you're trying to get is an accurate read of average daily users consistent throughout the year. We did provide the information that the train has provided us in the past, though. And those numbers are quite spectacular when you look at the size of our community and just how many people come in via the train.
And none of them use the sidewalk.
None of them use the sidewalk.
I think once you get the score sheet back, it'll be easier for you to change or add or, enhance areas of the grant that you've written. But I would definitely be in favor of trying to apply for the second round of funding. I don't know how everybody else feels, but
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we need to continue going for this money and try and get as much as we can for it. So.
Agreed. And again, without the score sheet, I really don't know exactly where the areas are for improvement, but I do know that it was a little difficult to plug in accurate data and really make ourselves look good when we're just kind of guessing in a lot of those areas. But again, that was a very common theme through all the applications.
Sounds like you have support, Todd.
Right.
Wonderful. We'll do our best. We're really excited about this project, and I hope we can bring home a big win for this community. So we're really excited to move forward, and we'll do our best.
It might be a little late in the game, but what about one of those counters that they pull across the highway for Blair Street? Is that something that we would have the ability to utilize from CDOT? The counters that string across the road?
We could certainly make that request and see if they could help us out or see if they have historical data. I did ask them if they had historical data from Blair Street, and they did not. It was mostly from the Y.
Yeah, well, that's where they usually put them up, but yeah, might be late in the game, but they might be able to give us one if they've got one available at the barn. Don't know. Food for thought.
I think that's a great idea, and I can certainly look into that. And really, we did just because there is a second round. I did want to come back to the Board of Trustees, and I will be going back to the Blair Street Historic District Association again to ask for their blessing in the second application. Really, just kind of doing the due diligence here and making sure everyone is still on board, and hopefully with those 16 projects out of the way, maybe we'll bump up a little bit here, and on the second round might not be quite as competitive.
Sure.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. Great. Moving on to update on San Miguel Power Association Fire Mitigation Road Closure Update.
Okay, so you have the proposed dates in your packet, but I will say them out loud as well. So San Miguel Power Association is awaiting a letter of support from the town of Silverton to submit to CDOT for their proposed new dates to conduct their fire mitigation and close Highway 550 during the day. The proposed dates are September 13th through the 16th, open from 8:30 a.m. to noon, and open noon to 1, and then, closed from 8:30 a.m. to noon, and open noon to 1, and then closed again from 1 to 5:30. And then September 17th with the same schedule, except closed 1 to 4 o'clock, so a little earlier on that Friday. And then the following week, September 20th through the 24th, being closed from 8:30 a.m. to noon, and open from noon to 1, and then closed again from 1 to 5:30. So I'm asking for your direction to draft a letter to CDOT tomorrow to submit.
Nothing is optimal, but this is better than what we had before, and at least there was ample notification.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. I will get that letter out tomorrow.
Awesome. Moving right along. Election update.
Before we begin the update with Kelly and Lane here, I just wanted to remind you that we do need to set a special meeting for Monday, August 30th to approve the ballot language for the recall elections. And so was wondering if the 7 o'clock on the 30th would work.
Hey, Gloria, do you mind if I interject real quick?
Absolutely.
So the new candidate petitions are due on the 27th. I plan to draft the language right after. I can't draft the language until I get those petitions. So if you have to notice the meeting with the language, we won't be able to do it by Monday. So I can have the ballot language to you pretty much within 2 hours of getting the petitions, though.
Are we on then Tuesday?
I'll make it work, even though I usually can't ever leave on Tuesday.
I'll just throw it out there again. I'm always down for early morning. Not that
Same.
anyone wants to ever take that, but I'm an early bird.
But by early,
Like 6 a.m.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's really early, just to say. But I'm down for early too.
Can you put us back on?
Pull off again.
Yes. Is our system and not this new owl.
He's sleepy.
Why did we switch to the owl? Just because it moves when people talk
Mhm.
versus the stationary camera?
Right.
I don't know, the owl doesn't, he seems to like go to sleep a lot.
The stationary camera was actually dropped and broke, so we went to the owl system.
Mm.
Oh.
Oh, that's okay.
Ooh. Ooh.
Hey,
All right.
well, the 31st on Tuesday works for me if it's after school.
We do the 31st at 7:00 PM. Sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, I know. 7:00 PM, but 7:00 it works for me too.
Jess, does that work for you, sir? We got a thumbs up.
Okay, figure out how to make it work.
So Tuesday, 7 PM. 31st.
Okay, thank you. I will leave it to Kelly and Lane for their.
The 17th, I'm in Clerk Institute right now, finishing up my last year. On the 17th, we had a class called Municipal Recall, just in time.
So convenient.
Yeah, exactly. And once I saw that we had that, I invited Gloria, since she's new at this process also, and she sat through most of it with me. And we found it very informative of what Karen Goldman, who is our election guru and has worked with the Secretary of State, and she's given us a lot of information. So Gloria gave me the idea of, go ahead, let's put PowerPoint into your packets, so you guys have the information. If you have any questions, Lane and I will try to answer as best as we can.
I emailed you my question, Kelly, so I think I'm good there.
What?
Sounds like we're
All right.
without any questions. Thank you.
All right.
Well, that does it for our agenda. So we now move to our closing public comment. Gary?
What was in the chat?
Oh, it was a while ago.
No, okay.
So we do not have any in-person public comment this evening, so we'll look to our Zoom participants. If you'd like to comment, please click the raise hand button and Kelly will promote you.
You have Albert Hyrick again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm going to continue from earlier. I was discussing the municipal league and how the town board depends on them to determine whether something is ethical or legal. Both the town attorney and the municipal league are only fed what the town board members and the mayor decide. They base their opinions on the information that is given them. Garbage in, garbage out. Does anyone anywhere believe it is appropriate for a sitting judge to sign on to a controversial development plan authored by the mayor and then take the job of town administrator, which included advice on the hiring of town admin and the town attorney. Now, a fear permeates the town, the fear of being sued by Shane. Some threats are blatant, like the one I received, and some implied. People fear mentioning Selwyn, even the Silverton Standard, our paper of record. This is a problem since the main issue, conflict of interest and honesty, will be erased from the debate. All we will see is pro-Shane commentary and silliness over OHVs and the pledge. This is why threats of legal action have been made, to silence us from discussing the main and only reason to recall our mayor, dishonesty. So let me ease your minds. The Selwyn plan is in the public domain, thanks to Jordan distributing it without getting a signed confidentiality agreement. Most regional news outlets have a copy, as do several national media outlets. This is a widely distributed document. 2, this changed from being a private business matter to a public trust issue when Anthony signed on to Selwyn and then took the town admin position and then offered input, no matter how minuscule, to the board on the hiring of the town attorney and the new town admin. 3rd, and most importantly, a lawsuit would do exactly what we've been asking Shane to do, reveal his investors. But it will do more. To discovery, and if needed subpoena, we would be able to access everything relevant. The interrogatories alone will bring a wealth of info on how Selwyn may or may not have used the mayor's position in an unethical and potentially criminal manner. Come on, Silverton, this is about honesty and not allowing backroom deals, conflicts of interest, and greed to spread throughout the community. We've witnessed how it can affect the judgment of Anthony Edwards and Jordan. Unless we remove the head of the snake, it will only grow. Support the recall of Shane Furman, but for the right reasons. I'll see you all on the 13th. Good night.
Kelly.
Sounds like a great pitch for a new fiction work that he's going to be selling. I don't see any other public comments this evening. Oh, Nancy. Nancy, welcome.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. I would just like to voice my support for Becky Joyce and the Public Health Department. These decisions are super hard, and I can't even imagine having to make them myself. It's kind of an unprecedented time for the whole world, really. And I just wish good decisions, regardless of who makes them, could be recognized as good decisions. And I thank you guys for all you do. This is just a great place, and just really appreciate all of you.
You have David Breed.
Good evening. I just had a quick comment about the OHV issue in the upcoming vote on the OHVs. I think we're down to allowing them to stay in town or revoking that privilege. Personally, I think it's time to revoke that privilege to be in town. I don't think it works for the community. After hearing Tyler George's speaking about the impact on him personally and other people that live on the route, it's hard for someone that lives off the route to vote for it when clearly it has an impact on their quality of life. Secondly, I don't think we need it economically. We can adapt. We can migrate our economy off of a dependence on OHVs. I don't think taking them out of the town will, sure, there's some impact on Loki and some other folks. We can find ways to mitigate that, but it's kind of a failed experiment. Hopefully the town and the county could come together and create a staging area. If this is really about banning them from the entire county, then that's a different thing than banning them from the streets of Silverton. And that would have a larger impact on the economy if they're banned from the county. And so I would think that people could start to think about, trustees and our county commissioners, about ways to migrate in a gentle way that doesn't hurt local businesses and our longtime visitors unnaturally as we try to protect the backcountry, because that's really what it's about. There's just too much going on in the backcountry, And the OHVs would be the first thing to start to damp down on. You can't limit the access of licensed registered vehicles. And so if you're going to protect what we are as a San Juan County and as a Silverton residents, it's our responsibility to protect the backcountry and to protect the San Juan Mountains for everybody. And so I think the OHV thing has run its course in town. Whether it's run its course in the county or not is a different issue. But I would hope that we would start to think about ways that we could, if we ban the OHVs in town, that we could move towards a way to migrate them without chaos with the trailers everywhere and people parking on the public roads. That'll be a whole other problem for enforcement and everything else. And that's something that needs to be addressed if we're anticipating them being banned. That's all I had to say.
All right. There's no more comments.
All right. And with that, the time is 9:17 p.m. and we adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Lane.